Coming up on the show, the real reason Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble revealed. There's been a backstage bust-up over what should main event WrestleMania, and more details on exactly what was said in the Brock Lesnar-Matt Riddle showdown backstage.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk news. I'm El Fakador Laurie Blake, and it is 3 days later, but we are still talking about it because the Royal Rumble may have dispensed all of its competitors over the top rope, but you can't tip the joy out of my heart. Because I'm so glad Edge is back. McIntyre won. We had Beef Lee versus Braun Strowman versus Brock Leg-a-Lamb in a three-way meat fest. Bianca Belair was put over huge, and Shayna Baszler's monster run are just memories I'm gonna cherish forever. There are also still unanswered questions, like who thought Santina was a good idea? And was Otis just under the ring the entire time, hoping that Mandy would drop on him and they would touch fronts? And Tamina. And most importantly, why did Charlotte Flair win? Because it's not exactly like she needs it. And considering that the news yesterday was that Baszler is still set to face Becky at Mania and Charlotte versus Bayley isn't currently on the cards either, like why do it at all? Well, apparently the Rumble win could have been to placate Flair, who has made no bones about her dissatisfaction in the company, having said it publicly to Corey Graves before. Now, Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio said Shayna Baszler logically should have won to set up the Becky Lynch WrestleMania match and was scheduled to win. Now, I get why they switched from Roman Reigns to Drew McIntyre. I know why they switched from Shayna Baszler to Charlotte Flair. I think it's just a collective debt, so to speak. Charlotte had been promised things in the past, then had the rug pulled out on her, which is funny because the perception is the exact opposite. So I guess the Rumble win was to make things good with Charlotte because she was clearly promised something else at some other point that she never actually got. And then I guess that makes a sort of sense, apart from the fact that she now can't actually cash in the win on any of the champions because they're all busy. So seemingly the current plan is to have Charlotte face off with NXT Women's Champion Rhea Ripley at Mania. And I can't wait to see them try and book themselves out of that corner because Charlotte definitely can't lose to Rhea Ripley at Mania, but she also can't be the NXT champion. Now, Meltzer said that the Ripley match is the one that is currently booked in at the minute, but speculated that Charlotte could also use her Rumble win to set up a match with Ronda Rousey, which is not for a championship, it's just for the, like, I guess the title of baddest woman on the planet? I don't know. Now, if you think it's mad that wrestling commentators online can't decide what they think is happening at Mania, it's probably gonna shock you that WWE basically don't know either. And wrestling journo Tom Collihue said that his sources made it clear to him that Paul Heyman is campaigning heavily to have McIntyre main event WrestleMania, while Vince McMahon's preference for the main event is still believed to be Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt. So we've got Raw's lead creative force and the big boss man butting heads over what's going to send us home happy at Mania. And I have to side with Paul on this one because I think Drew toppling Brock to win big will resonate more with fans who have seen essentially every single shade of Roman Reigns winning at Mania to close the show, except a heel turn. And I guess if that happens, or if The Fiend is retaining the title, that, my friend, makes it a very different story. And I'd like to see that main event. But as with all things WWE plans to do, they are subject to change. Because, for instance, Dave Meltzer was suggesting on Wrestling Observer Radio that Aleister Black was originally in the running for that Mania match with Brock. Sign me up for some of that, please, my good sir. I would really like it. And I guess that's kind of why Rumble season is just so exciting, because you never really know which way things are gonna go, because they don't either. And things also change on the day, like say if there's a backstage altercation between two of the talents. Pete's got more on that in a second.
Thank you to Arnie K. The K stands for the coolest dude ever, for being an awesome pledge hammer on Patreon. Thanks, Laurie. And you have to bear with me a little bit today. I'm still recovering. I lost my voice on Sunday night because Edge returned and Drew McIntyre won the Rumble and I was screaming too much, but I've just about got my voice back now. which is just about enough to do the news, so bear with me. The fallout from the Royal Rumble is still coming, and honestly, it feels like a completely new WWE. Drew McIntyre as a legitimate main eventer, Edge has returned, but one thing that will never change is Matt Riddle getting into backstage altercations with big beefy lads. It was reported that at the Royal Rumble on Sunday, Brock Lesnar and Matt Riddle got into a little bit of a verbal battle, with Lesnar making it very clear his feelings on Riddle, while Riddle probably smiled and said bro a lot. It's very well known that Matt Riddle has expressed his public interest in retiring Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and it was suspected that this may be the reason for this altercation. Alex McCarthy of TalkSport was at the show on Sunday, and he is reporting what was allegedly said between the two. It began with Lesnar approaching Riddle and grabbing his shoulder for attention before saying, "Kid, you might as well stop saying my name and tagging me in shit, because you and I will never work together. Ever." According to McCarthy's report, Riddle attempted to speak to Lesnar earlier in the night, but didn't find the opportunity. But during this discussion, Lesnar said his feelings and kept moving, and it was noted that Riddle was his usual cool and composed self. So he definitely said bro a lot. What is most interesting about this report, however, is the contradictory notion that Riddle wasn't punished for this transgression. After the event on Sunday, it was speculated that since this altercation happened and Riddle entered the Rumble match but lasted less than a minute, getting no eliminations and being unceremoniously dumped out by King Corbin, this Rumble entrance was a punishment of sorts for Riddle. However, if McCarthy's report is true, then Riddle wasn't the one who instigated the discussion between the two. Moreover, McCarthy went on to say that Riddle's elimination in the match was exactly as planned, as Lesnar had already been eliminated in the match by this point, which means that no interaction between the two in a match was ever planned. This is in contradiction to what is being reported by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, who is stating that Matt Riddle has massive heat with WWE currently, which is the reason for that frankly awful booking in the Rumble. However, the reason for this heat may still be unknown, as it may not necessarily be anything to do with the Lesnar altercation. Perhaps it's possible that Riddle has rubbed some people the wrong way. After all, he is very outspoken, not afraid to share his opinion, and he has a unique way of going about things. That is a concoction for some people to not like you. But we still like you, Matt. Don't you worry. We got your back. Something else we like is Edge returning to WWE. I don't think that's a particularly hot take when I say that. After making his triumphant return at the Royal Rumble match at number 21, he promptly got his head bashed in with a chair by Randy Orton on Raw. Welcome back, I guess. While this most certainly looks like a way to keep Edge off of TV for a little bit to sell those injuries, the question arises, how often will Edge be appearing, and how often will he be wrestling? Well, don't you worry, because I've got the answers. According to a tweet from the ever-reliable WrestleVotes, Edge's contract is a 3-year deal, backed up by a report from Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, who went on to say it was worth $3 million per year. But interestingly, it seems like Edge will have a touch of the Lesnar syndrome, as he is committed to having 5 matches per year and around 25 appearances. Having already had one of those matches at the Rumble and 1 appearance on Raw, with another match against Randy Orton looking likely for WrestleMania, that leaves 3 matches left for this year. So that would be SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and oh no, a Saudi show. Or Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank would be better. Edge in a Money in the Bank match would be great actually, because all the history with Money in the Bank, do that instead. So it's not a full-time return to the ring, but you know what? Beggars can't be choosers, and you can bet that we've been begging for this return for ages. So good on you, Edge, and we all can't wait to watch your matches whenever they may be. It was reported yesterday that Andrade had been suspended by WWE for 30 days following a wellness policy violation, and that the angle on Raw with Humberto Carrillo hammerlock DDTing Andrade into the concrete was a way to write him off TV for that duration, which, you know what, is totally fair. I mean, I need a day off if I stub my toe. Well, it's now been confirmed by WWE that Andrade has indeed been suspended for violating the wellness policy, though we still don't know what substance has triggered this transgression. Interestingly though, as he is the current United States champion, you may expect him to drop the title. However, this is not the case. According to the Wrestling Observer, Paul Heyman is currently very high on Andrade, which isn't necessarily news in and of itself, as there's a distinct group of Paul Heyman projects currently, including Drew McIntyre Flair, Aleister Black, Ricochet, Buddy Murphy, and Andrade himself. However, what is newsworthy is that Paul Heyman doesn't want Andrade to drop the US title just yet because it's too early in the feud with Humberto to do so. Does this mean that Humberto will be winning it at some point? Will Andrade just continually beat Humberto forever and ever? We'll have to wait and see, but it's reassuring for Andrade fans that Heyman hasn't lost faith in him just yet. Though, if Vince has his way, perhaps Andrade might lose the title upon his return as some sort of punishment, because a 30-day suspension isn't enough punishment. Something else that happened on Raw this week was Samoa Joe seemingly picking up an injury while doing a dive in a tag match alongside Kevin Owens against Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. He was escorted to the back during a commercial break, and he wasn't able to leave under his own power. It's now being reported via Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer that Joe picked up a concussion on the dive, with his head hitting either the floor or Buddy Murphy's boot pretty gosh darn hard. There's currently no timeline on when Joe is due for a return, but fingers crossed he can make it back in time before Mania, considering Joe has just come back from an injury as it is, spending the tail end of 2019 as a commentator on Raw. Another injury on the Raw side is AJ Styles, who picked up an injury off a spear from Edge in the Royal Rumble. While there are no concrete timelines in place for Styles' return, WWE officials are reportedly hoping for him to also be back by WrestleMania, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, who speculated that it may have been a separated shoulder that Styles is suffering from. Fingers crossed both of them can make a speedy recovery. And finally, in news from Raw, the viewership numbers are in, and with it being a post-Royal Rumble episode where we had two shocking winners of the Rumble matches and the return of a WWE legend from a 9-year retirement who was promoted to be on this show, there was a very slight increase in numbers, which is a little bit disappointing, really, isn't it? Raw drew an average of 2.402 million viewers, up from last week's 2.380 million, with the viewership numbers dropping to 2.224 million for the final hour, which featured Edge's return and brutal angle with Randy Orton. This is possibly a troubling number for WWE, who you would have thought may have been expecting slightly larger numbers for the return of a legend who was popular in the Attitude Era, who also had a mainstream reported heartbreaking retirement 9 years ago. But alas, that is not the case, and WWE continues to decline in overall ratings. I guess they just need to bring back The Rock. That always fixes things, right? Edge nearly ended up in AEW. Press the video to the right to find out more, and press the video below that to find out more about Seth Rollins' social media controversy. Yes, there's been more of it. A special thank you to our lovely pledge hammers on Patreon, some of whom you can see scrolling below me right now. I've been Chopper Pete Quinnell, and that was wrestling.